We were all once little kids sitting in front of the TVs watching cartoons, watching SpongeBob, until a show called Avatar came on and something felt different about it. The episodes were connected, we discovered what plot meant. It was the first time watching something where episodes mattered. You wanted to see what happened next when Aang goes crazy in the temple, or when you feared for everyone's life when Appa was taken. You didn't know at the time, but in your head you were thinking, this is peak. And now watching as an adult, you're like, oh my god, this is deep. Holy shit, Iroh taught me more about life than my parents. The tales of Ba Sing Se are crazy. And you make a bunch of vile memes about it. But once again, in your mind, you're thinking, this is the peak of what storytelling is. Now, you could probably make a list of characters that are the greatest, from Aang being your typical childhood model, to Katara having to take on a mothering role, or Sokka having to step up and become a leader, except a lot of these characters are seen throughout all of fiction. There's a million different Aangs, especially in anime, from Naruto, Luffy, Asta, the list goes on. Or even Katara and Ai and Sokka and Usopp, they're still great characters, but there's one that's way more interesting than the rest, and that is, of course, Zuko. I know you growing up thought Zuko was a demon, a devil, someone that betrayed them. So many times he tried to kill Aang, like literally 3 times. What am I talking about him being relatable? But listen, Zuko lived a life of tragedy, and he is more relatable than any character in the series, as he represents you and is someone that was just trying to figure himself out throughout the entire series. But in order to get there, you need to remember where he started. He was balling out in the Fire Nation Palace. They were sitting there talking about taking over the world. You must be sitting there like, who the fuck does he relate to? Kim Jong-un's kids? I don't know if that man is capable of producing children, but long behold, his grand and great life comes to a halt when his mother died / disappeared, and then everything started to spiral. In case you forgot, his mother was really the only one that liked him, because Luke Skywalker, Ozai. Pause. If the joke went over your head, Mark Hamill plays Ozai, and I didn't know that until I watched it as an adult, which is always a crazy revelation when I tell people. But Mark Hamill didn't really give a shit about Zuko and looked at him as a tool, and he was a pretty shit tool. Look, I know this doesn't seem like a crazy situation, but in case you forgot, Zuko stands up to his father and actually tries to have morals, and Ozai challenged this kid to a duel and branded him for life and told him to go find the fucking Avatar. Like, dog, you ought to understand, that's like your dad kicking you out and telling you to go find the reincarnation of Jesus. Remember, this kid is literally 14 years old, and all the adults sitting there in that arena are watching. They're like, damn, I gotta write this down. Maybe I could try this on my kids. But long behold, you have Zuko, who is unproven in every aspect, publicly humiliated, living in the shadow of his father, as well as his sister, who's a natural talent and a complete miserable human being, which we'll touch on more later. And then he's tasked with finding the Avatar. He's basically gotten instilled in him in the hardest way possible that glory to your nation and family is the only thing that matters, and the only way to clear your past transgressions is for you to go out and find the Avatar, which of course, coming at a time when you're highly impressionable, it basically taught him that honor is the only thing that matters, thus creating a rock solid and impenetrable motivation to find the Avatar at all costs. So there's a lot to get through in book 1, but it's essentially just like, ooh, chase Avatar, no, I have to be the one to get avatars. Then we get to the water temple, which is where everything explodes. And essentially the only real significant thing that happened in terms of Zuko is by defeating Zhao, he understands what the worst version of himself could look like. Zhao is a lot like Zuko, and if Zuko continues down this path, he will become a vile, decrepit man, hell-bent on status, and he basically represents everything wrong with the political world in Avatar. Or another way to look at it, a clear juxtaposition of Iroh in every which way. Zhao is like that villain you're supposed to hate, like Joffrey and almost every villain in modern anime, but not in that Joker way where you actually like the character. He has no redeeming features. I think it's just because Zhao is like someone you can meet in real life. It's not like you're gonna run into the Joker in the office, someone's gonna be like, you want to know how I got these scars? But Zhao, there's definitely some dickhead in your office or class who just tries to big himself up every opportunity he gets. Like I said, we're not gonna stick on book 1 too long because there's not too much to get through there in terms of Zuko evolving. He basically just establishes himself. Book 2, man. Book 2 is some gas. In case you forgot, Mark Hamill sends Azula to go capture Zuko and Iroh after they beat the shit out of Zhao, so they then get forced to live on the road and basically in complete hiding. Zuko has essentially gone from being a prince and outcast to someone with no sense of direction whatsoever, and he leaves Iroh in an amicable way to find his own path during this time while they're living alone, which leads to one of the best episodes in the whole series with just Zuko. The episode is literally called Zuko Alone, where we see Zuko in an Earth Nation village that's being abused by its Earth Nation protectors. We see Zuko and his family get get along and him build a connection with this kid. Also, the whole backstory of how Ozai took control over Iroh and why his mother left, it's all playing along the same episode. Ultimately, Zuko's identity is revealed when he goes to defend them, and in this climax, he gets a first-hand grasp of all sides of the world's conflicts. The fear of the Fire Nation, the abuse from soldiers regardless of nation, and of course the people struggling that get caught in this crossfire. It's a real tale of war, and it's a real learning moment for Zuko. He understands the full grasp of everything going on, and honestly it's a lesson to the audience too on what war can do to people, and what giving soldiers and political leaders power can also have an impact on the actual people living in the nation. So he then reunites with Iroh, and we get one of the first looks of what I think is the real Zuko. The fake Zuko will make a little bit more sense later, but essentially we're gonna jump to the point where they all team up to face Azula. But the main key to this scene, besides the fact that it was like holy shit, one of the coolest fucking scenes in the whole show, but the fact that Iroh gets injured and we see Zuko have an instantaneous reaction, and his most human reaction to that point. Normally he was robotic and awkward, but set towards a goal, whether it be chasing the Avatar or running from Azula, but now we see him instantly realize that that is who he cares about the most. But what's important is I think the audience understands that, but I don't think Zuko yet even understood how much he cared about Iroh. Even though he had that reaction, I don't think he ever really thinks about it, which leads him to make decisions he regrets, which we'll talk about more later on. But this was a subtle tell to everyone of what Zuko's true emotions are and who he really cares about. And whilst Iroh's injured, they start the next part of Zuko's journey, working in the tea shop, and we see Zuko start to understand other values in life and the fact that there's more to the world than just honor, and he's had it all, lost it all, and seen the impact on the world. Why did he even want to chase the Avatar? He was happy with his uncle and he thought he had found inner peace, enjoying the days pass by and bossing say they operated the tea shop, but no, this was only because he thought the times of Aang being an option were gone. That's how he was able to give it up and just suck it up and work at the tea shop, because he never thought he would ever come close again, and all of his inner peace crumbled away when he learned that Aang was also embossing say, or rather Appa. And this is when the conflict just completely exploded in front of him, and it's a real rising action of his change. What was he to do? He had found peace, he was an outcast, but now there's a way for him to come back. This all comes to a halt, and the perfect way to sum up Zuko's character is when he's right in front of Appa about to steal him.
I know my own destiny, Uncle. Is it your own destiny, or is it a destiny someone else has tried to force on you? Stop it, Uncle. I have to do this. I'm begging you, Prince Zuko. It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
That was the first time someone had ever asked him that, the first time he could ever consider for himself, who am I? The question that drives us all crazy and is scary to think about, but if ignored can lead you down the life of living in another's dream. Zuko from birth was told to seek glory for the Fire Nation, for his family, and for himself, and everything was built around those principles. To have it taken away only made him want those symbols more, want to become glorious and a leader to make his people proud, but in actuality those motivations are born from the desires of his father and his lineage. At this point he says no, maybe he doesn't know who he is yet. Why does he actually want the Avatar, and what does that have to do with his purpose? When he finally answers the question and accepted that he was no longer hell-bent on finding the Avatar, he had found his inner peace and was going to live out in that tea shop, being happy for once, actually smiling. Maybe he didn't know who he was at that point, but he still wanted to take the time and understand that, maybe consider that the Avatar wasn't his goal all along. Obviously that all went out the window when they got roped into the Earth King Dai Li drama, where we get to the most pivotal moments in Zuko's life where everything starts evolving for his character rapidly. While being trapped, he thinks he's found himself and even finds relatability in Katara's struggle and the pain of losing a mother and the loneliness that can come from that. That even though she is/was his enemy, he has that soft spot and a moment that causes serious reflection for him. Juxtaposed to that, Azula bargains with Zuko, saying an act like helping her in the coup is great enough to restore his honor. He had just found peace. He just decided that he was going to be better and that he no longer wanted everything he thought he did. He was going to reinvent himself to find a better way, a better path, and then all of a sudden the option is right there to get what he always wanted. This may seem like a bizarre comparison, because it is, but that's okay. It's a lot like all of us growing up. We have instilled in us dreams and aspirations so great, but immediately it's forced onto us that we need to get a 9-to-5 job and live this life where you make money, have success, and move up ladders, and do things the same way that everyone else that came before you did. Except once you get to college, you're like, shit, when did I let my dreams die? When did I let my ambitions burn out? So you start pursuing it and figuring yourself out, and then all of a sudden you get a job offer for something way more than you should get paid. Not that much work, and although it's not what you want to do, you're willing to let go of your morale for this paycheck because for so long that was instilled in you that that's your goal. It may seem wild, and maybe I only relate to this because I'm a senior in college right now, but I understand the dilemma. So many shit on Zuko for betraying them in this situation, but for one, you need to remember the time frame of this. Him finding peace is not that long before this decision is brought to him, so of course when offered, how could he not take it? It's what he always wanted, to just have a family again, to be together, to restore his honor, so he takes it, and I believe he never really took into consideration what he was doing to Iroh, someone that cared for him so much. He never understood the pain it would cause him, and the full extent of that could be a whole nother video, which let me know if you want me to make that, and also, if you're enjoying this one, please leave a like. But he was so blinded by the opportunity that he never took the chance to see what he was leaving in the past, and thus transitions into the next stage of his transformation. In this time away, I don't think Zuko expected some grand arrival or anything, but there's a lot of things that got reintroduced into his life that weren't there before when he was simply just living out with Iroh, such as politics. Azula telling Ozai that Zuko was the one to land the killing blow on Aang was definitely a huge reminder for the audience of what matters in these kinds of chambers. The word is paramount over everything and not truth. This is a domain built on deception. His own father schemed his way to the throne, and in no way was he going back to paradise. He was jumping into a pool of piranhas. And Zuko, who had deemed himself so much on true glory and true honor, is all of a sudden getting rewards for something he didn't actually do, and Iroh giving Zuko the cold treatment during this time only further pushed Zuko feeling alone. But you know that hurt Iroh just as much as Zuko, but Iroh needed to get Zuko in a situation to think about his actions and still answer the question of who am I, and the only person he really had to lean on is his girlfriend May, which is where the relatability for all of us goes out the window. But my favorite scene of Zuko, and in my opinion the turning point of his character, is the beach scene. Not that one, this one. In case you forgot, they got kicked out of the party and essentially they're all mad at each other, and Zuko drops one of the most relatable rants of all time.
I'm angrier than ever and I don't know why.
Who are you angry at?
No one. I'm just angry.
Is it Dad?
No.
Your uncle? Me?
No. I'm angry at myself.
I'm mad at myself, honestly, is words I echo whenever I'm frustrated at the world. To be so upset and so lost, not knowing what to do with yourself, not knowing how to feel, not knowing why it is you're not so happy when everything around you is going right. It's something that everyone can resonate with because it's something that just makes you bitter. Zuko doesn't even know how to feel. He got what he wanted the most, and all of a sudden he feels just as bad as he did before. He thought he had found peace, he thought he had found his way, only for everything to go out the window, and he became more lost and distant. What did he have to do? He was just doomed to be miserable and unhappy his whole life. It's a pinnacle of being human, and Iroh's question still looms large. Who are you? Till you answer this question of the person you are, what do you want? Who do you want to be? How could you possibly expect to know why you feel the way you're feeling if you don't understand yourself? How could anyone possibly help you find your way either? And this all leads him down to finally joining the Avatar, because there's no way any person that he is or isn't wants to burn down the entire Earth Nation like the Fire Nation was planning to do, which then leads him to losing his firebending, which is awesome because it's not some easy fix. It's not like, oh, this is me now, I'm all of a sudden in the clear. This is a process that's going to take time. Just because you know the direction, it doesn't mean you know how to get there. In this process of him finding another source of fire, it could no longer be fueled by rage and darkness, but through one of the most cinematic and impressive scenes in the whole series. And the help of Aang, he finds a source of his fire is life and light. And although he got his fire back, he still has some more growing to do. So he goes on and helps Sokka rescue Suki, and even sees the others, and has a moment where he sees Katara all of a sudden looks just like he did, angry and bitter, bent on revenge, taking back something that others stole from her, and even making the decision she would almost regret. Although he didn't explicitly do anything to stop her from killing him, I think he was going to step in if needed, and he was one of the only people that could understand her emotions and was willing to support her and understand her because of their shared pain. Then this new reformed Zuko had one of the most badass fights of all time against Azula, and finally defeats his sister his own way, not through hatred but through the refined person he is today. Azula got all she wanted and quickly fell into madness and despair. As she was surrounded by emptiness, Zuko avoided that pain and instead surrounded himself with friends, people he trusts, and rock solid ambition and drive that is more than just shallowness of wanting power. Zuko represents all of us trying to figure out what matters to us in life, what kind of person we can be. Should we go out and seek money and success, or should we leave and pursue what we want to do? Even though we've been led down this path our whole lives, this life of pursuing wealth no matter the cost, letting go of our ambitions, our drives, our passions. But once he answered the question, who am I, he discovered that there was nothing more he wanted than bringing bringing peace and ending the hatred for every person and every situation that was being controlled for so long. Just as he lets the shackles on them go, that strong, powerful hold from the Fire Nation, he himself let the shackles off himself. To me, he represents discovering who you want to be and the fact that you can have it all and still be angry, and just because you thought you knew where your life was headed, it doesn't mean that's what you want, but there's only one life we all have, and when we grow old and look back, it's all going to seem like a single moment. So while looking back, thinking of all the money and success you had make you happy, you're just looking back knowing you had an impact on the world, moved people, and of course had the time of your life while doing it. Hey, making a bit of money wouldn't hurt either. And I think this one quote from Iroh that was actually in Korra sums up Zuko and life quite a bit. If you look for light, you can often find it, but if you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see. Sometimes all you have to do is go out and search for what you want and try new things, figure out what you like instead of being trapped in a dark prison, and when you break free, you might become someone that you love and respect. So if you enjoyed this video, check out this video on the most relatable character in anime, Sanji, and leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget, we're just getting started, we're gonna stay consistent, and I will see you in the next video.